My name is Claire. I'm 32. And this is the story of how I turned my wedding day into a courtroom ambush. If you had seen me that morning, standing in front of the mirror, you would have thought I was the happiest bride in the world. The white dress hugged me perfectly. The veil shimmered under the soft morning light, and I even had that dreamy smile people talk about. But that smile, it was fake, because underneath that silken lace, I wasn't planning to say I do. I was planning a takedown. My fiancé, Jake, thought he could betray me, thought I'd be too in love, too blind, too trusting to ever find out. He didn't know I had already uncovered everything. The lies, the money, the cheating, all of it. So instead of walking down the aisle to become Mrs. Claire Walker, I walked into a courtroom with my dress still on, and every receipt I needed to bury him. The judge blinked twice when he saw me. Jake turned pale the second I stepped inside. And Maya, my so-called best friend, who was supposed to be my maid of honor, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. I didn't just want justice. I wanted them to remember what they lost, and I made sure they'd never forget it. But first, if you're the type of person who believes betrayal should never go unpunished, this one's for you. Like, comment, and make sure to subscribe, because on this channel, revenge doesn't just come knocking, it kicks the door in. Chapter 1. The Fairy Tale. There are some people who crave chaos. I used to think I wasn't one of them. I believed in peace, in comfort, in predictability. I believed in Jake. We met 5 years ago. I was working as a project coordinator at an interior design firm, always behind the scenes, juggling timelines and budgets while clients drank champagne and pointed at mood boards. Jake was the new financial consultant assigned to streamline our operations. He wore glasses the first day we met. Not the kind that make a man look nerdy, but the kind that make you think he's got secrets. That's the thing about Jake. He always looked like he knew something you didn't. It made people trust him. It made me fall. We weren't flashy. No whirlwind dates or dramatic declarations. Just late-night takeout, whispered plans about moving in together, and this strange feeling that for once, I didn't have to hold the world up alone. He knew I came from nothing, that I was raised by my grandmother after my mom ran off, and my dad disappeared into some gambling ring in Nevada. I told him once that I never believed I'd get married, and he squeezed my hand and said, "Then I guess I'm here to change your mind." I should have known then. The people who say things like that, they're always hiding something. But back then, I didn't see it. I saw the good man, the steady provider, the late-night ramen cooker, the person who brought my favorite candy on his business trips. And when he proposed, in a quiet little jazz bar with a ring tucked inside a martini glass, I said yes, before he could even finish the question. Our engagement was everything a girl dreams of. Pinterest boards, venue visits, cake tastings. Maya, my best friend since college, was there for all of it. She had been my roommate during some of the worst years of my life, and I trusted her like a sister. When I asked her to be my maid of honor, she cried harder than I did. The three of us, me, Jake, and Maya, became this tight triangle. We'd have game nights, wine and pizza Fridays. She even helped Jake pick my dress. I remember spinning in front of the boutique mirror while Maya clapped and Jake whistled. "Damn," he said, "if you show up in that, I might faint." I was glowing. God, I was glowing. I had no idea that both of them were already lying to me. Jake started acting weird about 2 months before the wedding. Not drastically. Not enough to cause a scene. But I noticed it. A glance at his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. Shorter conversations. Business trips that kept getting extended by a day or two. And always the same excuse. "It's just stress, babe. The firm's bleeding money. I'm trying to keep things together." And he did look tired. Worn down. Like someone carrying too many secrets in his shoulders. But I trusted him. Because when you love someone, really love them, you don't go digging for dirt unless the garden starts to rot. And everything still looked perfect. We had matching robes embroidered with Mr. and Mrs. Walker. Our wedding photographer followed us to the beach for a pre-shoot that made us look like we'd walked out of a magazine. Our RSVP list was over 120 guests. Maya helped me write my vows. She held my hand when I got cold feet. She even stayed over the night before the rehearsal dinner because I was too anxious to sleep. And all the while, they were planning to ruin me. The moment that changed everything came 2 weeks before the wedding. I was cleaning the laundry, mindlessly tossing Jake's slacks into the basket, when something heavy clinked against the dryer wall. It was a keycard. Nothing unusual. Jake traveled a lot, But this one wasn't from a chain hotel. It was from a boutique place downtown, one we'd talked about visiting, but never had. And the check-in date? 2 nights ago. A night he said he was in Phoenix. My stomach twisted. It could have meant nothing. It could have been for a meeting, or a client, or something boring and harmless. But something in my gut said otherwise. So I went to the hotel, and I asked. The front desk clerk looked me up and down, smiled politely and said, "Mr. Walker?" Yes. He checked in with a woman. They stayed one night. I remember standing there, gripping the counter so hard my knuckles went white. I asked if they had security footage. They said they couldn't show it to anyone but a police officer or the card holder. So I left, and I sat in my car for almost 40 minutes trying not to cry. Not because I was heartbroken, not yet, but because I felt the first wave of something darker. It wasn't sadness. It was rage, and I wasn't going to confront him with feelings. I was going to build a case. I didn't cancel the wedding. Not publicly anyway. I smiled through every appointment, made toasts at every pre-wedding dinner, and kissed Jake goodnight like nothing had changed. Meanwhile, I hired a private investigator. Her name was Brina. She was sharp, discreet, and expensive. I sold my grandmother's old diamond necklace to pay her retainer. "Give me 3 days," she said. "I'll get you proof for peace of mind." She delivered both. 4 days later, I had over 70 high-resolution photos of Jake and Maya, holding hands, checking into hotels, kissing in his car like a couple of horny teenagers. And worse, one photo showed Jake handing her a manila envelope. When I asked Brina what it was, she said Maya was depositing checks into a private account Jake had set up. He wasn't just cheating. He was using my name, my signature, to siphon wedding funds into a fake business, which they were splitting under the table. They were robbing me. And just like that, something inside me snapped. The Claire who cried quietly in bathrooms? Dead. The Claire who forgave too easily? Buried. I wasn't going to walk away. I was going to walk in my dress, in front of a judge. With every piece of evidence I needed to destroy them both, because if they wanted drama, they picked the wrong girl. Chapter 2. The cracks begin. People say revenge is sweet, but they never talk about how quiet it is at first. I didn't throw a fit, didn't scream, didn't confront Jake or Maya. That would have given them too much power. Instead, I went still, like a lake before a storm. I became the perfect bride again, the kind who double-checks the table arrangements and texts thank you notes to the florist. I wore white. I smiled. I called Maya sis, and underneath it all, I was carving a path straight to their destruction. Brina, my PI, didn't just stop with photos. She gave me timelines, financial trails, and, most damning of all, copies of forged checks in my name, checks I'd never signed. They were from our joint wedding account, one Jake and I opened together 3 months prior. Brina showed me screenshots from Maya's personal account receiving deposits in small amounts every few days. They were careful. Sloppy careful. Just enough to avoid suspicion, but arrogant enough to think I'd never look. It wasn't just betrayal, it was fraud. And it had my name all over it. That was the first night I didn't cry. I laughed, because I realized I had something more powerful than heartbreak. I had leverage. I needed time and silence. I couldn't risk tipping them off, not even a little, so I let them believe I was still blind. Jake was oddly sweet during that time, like guilt made him softer. Or maybe he just liked playing both roles, the cheating fiancé and the doting groom. He brought home flowers, booked a surprise couples massage, even offered to take over the wedding planning so I could relax. I said yes to all of it, because the more confident he became, the less careful he was. And I was watching everything. Maya, on the other hand, was slipping. She'd always been great at pretending, ever since college. Back then, she was the girl who could lie through her teeth while smiling. But now, there were cracks. She started canceling on me, showed up late for appointments, forgot little things, like my dress fitting, or the bridesmaid gifts she promised to order. And every time I looked at her, I wondered, what did she tell herself to sleep at night? That I didn't deserve Jake? That I wouldn't find out? Or worse, that I was too weak to do anything if I did? I stopped wondering after I saw the video. Brina sent it 1 week before the wedding. It was from a restaurant, classy place downtown. Maya and Jake sat side by side in a corner booth, heads close together, laughing. Then Maya leaned in and said, "What if she finds out before the wedding?" Jake chuckled and said, "Then she'll do what she always does, cry, forgive, move on." That was it. That was my line in the sand. I forwarded the video to a flash drive, labeled it Vows, slipped it into my bag. Because the man I loved thought I'd forgive him, and I wanted to be there, in person, to watch that belief die in his eyes. I started calling lawyers. I didn't tell them everything at first, just enough to get the ball rolling. One woman, attorney Ramos, listened to my story in complete silence, then said, "You're walking into a civil suit. But with the forged checks, we might even have criminal fraud." "I want both," I told her. "I want them ruined." She didn't flinch. "We'll file the suit the day of the wedding," she said. "And if you really want to twist the knife, we'll serve him during the ceremony." I shook my head. "No," I said. "I'll deliver it myself." She raised an eyebrow. "You?" I smiled. In my wedding dress. I prepped like a soldier. Every photo, every video, every text message and bank transaction was printed, organized, and filed. I learned how to speak calmly while referencing legal statutes. I memorized the courtroom address. And then I planned the other ceremony. I told my wedding planner we were moving the time to 3 p.m. instead of 1. Told the guests to arrive later. Told Maya I was going to get my makeup done in private. Then I called the courthouse and requested a walk-in filing time for a civil fraud suit. The clerk said they could see me at 1 p.m. sharp. I smiled and circled the date. The night before the wedding, Jake kissed me like nothing was wrong. He crawled into bed beside me and whispered, "You ready to be Mrs. Walker?" I almost choked on the irony. I nodded, kissed him back, and said, "I've never been more ready in my life." He fell asleep easily. I didn't. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, listening to him breathe. This was the man I planned a future with. The man who picked baby names with me. The man who held my hand when I cried during movies and made me breakfast on Sundays. And he was also the man who looked me in the eyes and lied, again and again, while sleeping with my best friend and stealing from me. I didn't cry. Not even a tear. Because the girl who would have cried for him, she was gone. The morning of the wedding was sunny and beautiful. Birds outside the window. Champagne chilling in the fridge. My dress, steamed, pressed, and ready, hanging on the closet door. I slipped into it alone. No bridesmaids, no cameras, no giggling pre-ceremony selfies. Just me, and the storm I'd been waiting to unleash. I stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. My grandmother used to say, "You can see a person's soul in their eyes." Mine looked calm, cold, unshaken. I adjusted my veil, picked up my evidence folder, and whispered to my reflection, "Let's go ruin his life." As I walked through the courthouse lobby, heads turned. A bride in full gown and makeup. No bouquet. Just a manila envelope and a fire in her eyes. A security guard stepped forward, concerned. "Miss, are you okay?" I held up the envelope and smiled. "Just here to file a wedding gift." He let me through. The clerk at the counter did a double take. "Ma'am, bride, Miss Claire Bennett," I said. "Here to file a civil fraud suit. I have all documentation prepared. And I'll also be filing for criminal fraud regarding forged checks. I'm the victim. He's the defendant." She blinked. And then slowly nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Right this way." The courtroom was nearly empty. Just a bailiff, the judge, and a few curious onlookers. I stepped inside, wedding dress brushing the floor, and took my place at the plaintiff's table. 10 minutes later, Jake walked in with Maya. They had no idea what was happening, until they saw me. Jake's face turned the color of cold milk. Maya stopped breathing. And when the judge cleared his throat and read the suit aloud, Claire Bennett versus Jacob Walker and Maya DeSantos, I saw the exact moment their hearts dropped. It was better than a honeymoon. Chapter 3. The Discovery. There's a silence that doesn't feel empty. It feels electric. That's what filled the courtroom the second the judge read Jake's name, followed by Maya's. They were standing hand in hand when they walked in, like a couple arriving for brunch. But now, Jake's fingers twitched against hers. Maya's smile slipped. They didn't sit. They didn't speak. They just stared at me, still in my wedding dress, still calm, like I hadn't just thrown a grenade in the middle of their fantasy. Jake opened his mouth first. "Claire, what is this?" I tilted my head and gestured toward the judge. "Your Honor, shall I begin?" The judge gave a tight nod. "Proceed." I stood up and opened the envelope. One by one, I laid the documents flat on the table, each one numbered, labeled. Exhibit A, a forged check for $4,200 drawn from our joint wedding account. Signature does not match mine. I placed it in front of the judge. Exhibit B, surveillance photos of the defendant Jacob Walker and Maya DeSantos checking into the Markham Hotel on March 11th and 12th. Hotel records confirm the room was paid for with the same account funds listed in Exhibit A. Jake's mouth opened again, but I held up a hand. Not yet. Exhibit C, a video recording of the defendants discussing the plaintiff's lack of awareness and their plan to continue siphoning money without her knowledge. Maya gasped. I pressed play. The courtroom filled with their voices, laughing, planning, justifying it all. And as the words hung in the air, I turned to the judge and said, "Your Honor, I'm not just here because my fiancé cheated. I'm here because he and my maid of honor conspired to commit financial fraud, used my name and signature without consent, and intended to profit off of my future without me in it. Jake finally broke. This is a mistake, he said, rushing forward. Claire, you're overreacting. This is personal. This isn't criminal. Sit down, the judge said coldly, but Jake kept going. We can talk about this, privately, please. I stood still, eyes on him. You thought I'd cry, that I'd forgive you, that I'd walk down that aisle and pretend none of it mattered. Claire, I love you, he said, voice cracking. It was a mistake. It meant nothing. I raised an eyebrow. You stole $27,842.97 from me, Jake. That doesn't just mean something. That is something. He blinked. I didn't take that much. I smiled. You didn't take it. You and Maya did. Maya stood up. Don't drag me into this. This was your idea. The judge banged the gavel. That's enough. Sit down. The room went quiet again. All eyes were on me. I pulled out one final document. Exhibit D, a copy of a transfer receipt from Jacob Walker's business account to a private account listed under Maya DeSantos' name. The funds were labeled consulting fees. Maya has no consulting license and no business registration. The funds originated from the plaintiff's account. The judge looked through the files slowly, then glanced at Jake. Mr. Walker, do you have legal representation? Jake stuttered. Not present, no, I didn't know this was... The judge didn't let him finish. You're being sued for financial fraud, Mr. Walker. If even a portion of this is valid, you'll be looking at charges beyond civil liability. He turned to me. Ms. Bennett, do you intend to pursue criminal charges? Yes, Your Honor, I said. This isn't just about money. It's about intent. They knew exactly what they were doing. The courtroom doors opened suddenly. My parents walked in, and behind them, guests from the wedding, my aunt, a few cousins, even our wedding photographer who'd come looking for me when I hadn't shown up. And now they were here, in this place, watching the groom and the maid of honor sit in silence, faces drained, trembling. I turned to the crowd, took a slow breath, and said, Thank you all for coming. I figured if I was going to cancel a wedding, I might as well give you something worth remembering. Gasps, whispers, phones raised. Someone took a picture. Jake lunged toward me, not violently, just desperately. Claire, please, this doesn't have to be this way. We can still... Still what? I asked, voice sharp. Get married? Start a life together based on theft and betrayal? No, but have kids? So you can teach them how to lie with a smile? He froze. I gave you every part of me, I said. My love, my loyalty, my future. And you didn't just throw it away. You sold it. Maya tried to stand again, but the bailiff approached her. Remain seated, ma'am. She folded back into her chair, red-faced and shaking. The judge began to speak again, but his words blurred behind the pounding in my ears. I could hear my heart, loud and clear, like it was reminding me, you did this. You didn't fall apart. You didn't beg. You brought justice to the altar, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something close to peace. Attorney Ramos approached me outside the courtroom. She'd arrived halfway through, stood quietly in the back, arms crossed. I've never seen anyone do what you just did, she said. Most people would have canceled the wedding. I turned to her, still in my dress, still holding the envelope. I wanted them to feel what I felt, not in private, not behind closed doors, but in front of everyone they thought would cheer them on. She nodded. We'll be pushing this to full trial. I'll get you everything you're owed. I don't want the money, I said. I want the story. She paused. You've got it. That night I went back to my apartment. Alone. I peeled off the wedding dress slowly, hung it up, not in shame, but as a trophy. Because while they lost everything they thought they were stealing, I walked away with the one thing they never saw coming. Power. Chapter 4. The Cold Revenge. The first thing I did when I got home was pour a glass of wine, not to celebrate, not even to numb anything, but to mark the end of one life and the beginning of another. I drank it in silence, sitting at the kitchen table, the same one Jake and I had picked out together from that overpriced Scandinavian furniture store, the one we sat at when he told me he wanted to spend forever with me. Now, forever was over, and I was the one who ended it. The media got wind of it 3 days later. Apparently someone in the courthouse, maybe one of the guests, maybe a reporter sniffing out a story, had taken a video of my courtroom reveal, and they posted it. The caption read, Bride files fraud charges in her wedding dress, groom and maid of honor exposed. It hit 1.2 million views in 24 hours. By the next morning, it was everywhere. Local news, Reddit, TikTok, a podcast episode. Hashtags like Wedding Justice and Claire V's the Snake started trending. People couldn't get enough of it. Strangers were calling me a queen, a legend, the patron saint of betrayed women. One woman even DM'd me saying, "Thank you. I caught my fiancé cheating and you gave me the guts to leave." That was the first time I cried, not because I was sad, but because I realized I had turned something ugly into something useful. Jake tried to go dark. He deleted his socials, went silent. But it didn't work. His company, the one he worked at as a financial consultant, saw the news, reviewed the case, and fired him for ethical breaches. Maya didn't fare any better. She was a PR specialist. The moment her name became public, her clients backed out. Her boss placed her on immediate leave pending investigation. She emailed me a week later. Just a single sentence. "You win." I didn't reply. Because this wasn't about winning. This was about consequences. Legally, things took time. Attorney Ramos filed a civil suit that demanded full repayment of the stolen money, plus damages for emotional distress and defamation. Jake's defense team tried to argue it was an internal relationship matter. But the bank records, hotel logs, and surveillance footage said otherwise. Their case was weak, and my evidence was airtight. Maya's lawyer attempted to settle quietly. She offered to pay back her half if I dropped the emotional distress charge. I said no, because money was never the goal. I wanted the world to know exactly who they were, and I wanted them to know I'd never be silent again. During all this, people kept asking me, "Don't you miss him?" At first, I didn't know how to answer, because missing someone implies that something good was taken from you. But Jake? Jake was never fully real. He was a version of a man, carefully edited, selectively honest, always a few layers deep. And Maya? She was just a mirror, reflecting back whatever people wanted to see. But me? I had been real the whole time. And now I was standing on my own. No more mirrors, no more lies. Just me, scars and all. One day, about 2 months after the courtroom scene, I ran into Jake's mother at the grocery store. She didn't recognize me at first. Not with the new haircut, the confidence, the calmness. But when she did, she walked straight toward me. No hesitation. I braced myself for confrontation. Instead, she said softly, "I'm sorry. For what he did. You didn't deserve any of it." I nodded. "Thank you." Then she said something I'll never forget. "He was always good at fooling people. But you made sure he couldn't fool himself anymore." She left without saying another word. But her voice echoed in my chest the whole drive home. Therapy helped, more than I expected. My therapist, Nadia, didn't ask me to forgive. She never once said I had to let it go. What she said was better. "You're not broken. You were lied to. That's not the same thing." And slowly, piece by piece, I started reclaiming myself. I reconnected with old friends, took weekend road trips, switched jobs, left that design firm and started my own business. Reclaimed Spaces, a company focused on redesigning rooms for women after divorce, breakups, or loss. People ate it up. Not just because of my story, but because I understood pain and how to build something beautiful from it. One afternoon, while organizing receipts in my home office, I found the envelope that held my wedding vows. I had written them weeks before the betrayal, folded neatly, romantic, naive. But at the very bottom, in the final line, was something that startled me. I promised to never lose myself for anyone, not even you. It was like my past self had left me a lifeline. And somehow, I had held on. Eventually, the court ruled in my favor. Jake and Maya were ordered to pay $42,000 in total damages, including all legal fees and emotional distress compensation. They tried to fight it. They lost. Jake sent me a cashier's check. No note, no apology. Just his signature in that same handwriting I used to trace with my thumb when I was in love. I cashed it and donated half to a shelter for abused women. The other half? I used it to build a scholarship fund in my grandmother's name, for women starting over. Because no matter what Jake and Maya took from me, I still had something they never will. Grace. Chapter 5. The Last Look Back. It's been a year, 12 months since the day I walked down the aisle. Not to say I do, but to say, I know what you did. Some days it feels like it happened last week. Other days, like a different lifetime. The white dress is still in my closet. I I couldn't bring myself to throw it away, not because I'm holding on, but because it reminds me I survived. And sometimes surviving is the most radical thing a woman can do. People still ask me why I did it that way, in public, in a courtroom, in front of family, friends, and strangers. They say, wouldn't it have been easier to walk away quietly? Yes, it would have been easier. But silence protects liars. And I've been silent before. When Jake started checking out emotionally, I stayed quiet. When Maya canceled on me 3 times in a row, I swallowed my hurt. When I found little clues, receipts, text messages, odd behavior, I doubted myself instead of doubting them. So no, I wasn't going to be quiet this time. I chose the loudest room I could find, and I told the truth. There's this myth people love to spread, that strong women don't get fooled. That smart, independent women don't get played, that we should have known. But let me tell you something. I was smart, I was strong, I was independent, and I still got lied to. Because manipulation doesn't care about your IQ, it cares about your blind spots. And love, real, open-hearted love, is one of the easiest places to hide a knife. The night after the courtroom, when the chaos had settled, when I had nothing left to say or scream, I sat on my apartment floor, wrapped in a blanket, and asked myself one question. Who am I now? Not Jake's fiancé, not Maya's best friend, not the girl who used to laugh at rom-coms and wedding TikToks. Just me. It was terrifying, and it was liberating. Because once you burn everything down, you get to rebuild from scratch. So I did. I stopped performing, stopped pretending I was okay when I wasn't. I let myself grieve. Not just the relationship, but the dream. I grieved the version of my life I thought I was living. I cried in the shower, screamed into pillows, journaled until my fingers cramped. Then one day, I woke up and didn't think about them first thing in the morning. It was small, quiet, but real. Healing doesn't arrive like a parade. It creeps in when you least expect it. I started traveling. Not far, just small trips, coastal towns, art festivals, nature hikes. On one trip, I met a woman named Jordan at a bed and breakfast. She was also freshly divorced. Her husband left her for someone half her age. We talked until 3 a.m. She said, "You're the Claire from that video, aren't you?" I nodded, embarrassed. She smiled. "You're the reason I left. I watched that clip 11 times. Each time I felt braver." That was the moment I understood something deep. My pain had become someone else's permission. And that's a kind of justice no courtroom can offer. Months passed. I launched my business officially, hired 2 employees, got featured in a lifestyle blog. Clients sent me messages like, "You helped me reclaim my space and myself." Every time I read one, I cried a little, not out of sadness, but awe, because I never thought my lowest moment would lead to my highest calling. Funny how life works. I still have triggers. Wedding invitations make me flinch. The smell of his cologne, the one from the green bottle, still makes my stomach twist. And trust? That's a slow rebuild. But I don't rush it. Because trust isn't about letting people in. It's about knowing you can walk away when things go wrong. And now, I trust myself enough to do exactly that. Sometimes I see them in my dreams. Jake, Maya, not in a haunting way, just as characters from a story I used to know. I don't hate them anymore, because hate is a tether, and I've already cut the rope. I don't wish them well, but I also don't wish them pain. I wish them honesty, because they've lived too long behind masks. And eventually that catches up with you. If you've made it this far, maybe you're not here for the drama. Maybe you're here because you've been lied to. Maybe you've been the one blindsided, humiliated, left out in the cold. So let me tell you something I wish someone had told me. Being betrayed doesn't mean you're broken. It means you trusted. And trusting is not a weakness. It's a gift. The shame doesn't belong to you. It never did. Would I do it all again? Yes. Even the pain. Even the public fallout. Because it gave me this voice, this strength, this second life. I didn't get the wedding I wanted, but I got the freedom I needed. And that's a better happily ever after than I ever could have planned.